Let's move over to the linebacker class, Dawn. Really interesting linebacker class, kind of wide open one. Who are your top 5 linebackers in this draft right now?
Yeah, this was tough, especially on the back end of it. But at 5, I went with Cedric Gray from North Carolina. I think you have a lot of guys in this draft who are very good either in run defense or in coverage. And I think the coverage side of it is a little more rare in this class. But I like Cedric Gray's athletic ability, his coverage skills. I believe he's graded over a 70 in 3 straight years in coverage. Really good Senior Bowl, showed the athleticism there. I think, I think there's a ton of run stoppers in this draft, more so than coverage guys. And I would go, if I was taking a 4th-ish round chance on a coverage linebacker, I would go with Cedric Gray. 4, Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M for me. He was the highest graded linebacker in the country this season after a few years of kind of middling, like decent. He really exploded this year. But I think the concern for me, and he had a big jump in coverage grade, is a lot of his highlights this year came as a spy, right? And that falls under the coverage umbrella. Like, there's a lot of like pressure, there's pass rush highlights, there's spy highlights chasing down quarterbacks. We mentioned it during the season, how he was chasing down all the mobile SEC quarterbacks. He is a problem, and he fits in run defense really, really well. But I couldn't help thinking about like Willie Gay kind of this year, who led the NFL in spy snaps, or even like I thought about a Devin White who really exploded his last year at LSU, all the way to the 5th overall pick, and that was certainly too high of a draft slot for him. I have real questions about if Cooper can cover, but I like him in run defense a lot. I do think that's a valuable skill. We've seen Willie Gay be a solid player. We've seen Devin White, when placed in the right role, be a solid player. But I wouldn't ask Cooper to cover too much, but based on his last season, this is where I'll slot him in. 3, give me Jeremiah Trotter out of Clemson. I think he's the highest graded linebacker in the entire country over the last 2 seasons, right? A little bit small. You can tell not as physical as a couple of these other guys, but he can really move. He can really cover. You can see the pedigree in the football IQ. He's almost always in the right spot. It's just a matter of when guys get his hands on him downhill, that's a problem. But I think Trotter's good tape to me reminds me of a guy from, I don't want to say back in the day because he's still playing, but it actually is pre PFF college. I think Levante David. I think David's a guy. Now, the only thing, Trotter, I don't believe, ran at the combine. I don't remember if he had an injury or something, but I don't know that Trotter's quite as fast as David was coming out, but I think it's a similar skill set. You have a guy with a high football IQ who can really run, who can really cover, and just struggles getting downhill sometimes, and really, really physical. But the same things were said about Levante David. And David's always played on the weak side, and he's done a great job of it. I think Trotter at his peak could be a very similar player. 2, Junior Colson from Michigan. I think he's actually the safest linebacker on the whole board. I think if you ask me a guy who's about to be a just solid starter for the next 8 years, I think it's Junior Colson. Everything's just so fundamentally sound. It's not flashy. He doesn't have a lot of big flash, holy hell kind of highlights. He just gets the job done. And for the most part, when he gets to the right spot, he's an excellent tackler. He's an excellent run fitter. The only flaw he really has is that sometimes he's just a little bit late. But I see him as kind of I think about some linebackers we've seen recently in the league. I thought about Azeez Al-Shire is kind of like that, just fundamentally sound. KJ Wright was kind of like that alongside Bobby Wagner for Seattle. I think Junior Colson fits in just about anywhere. It's just a safe, fundamentally sound pick. And number 1, Peyton Wilson, the best athlete of the group, one of the few guys that can cover of this group. He can really turn and run and cover. I think, though, we have to understand when we make Peyton Wilson the top guy here, what he is. There isn't a Luke Kuechly or a guy like that in this class, or a Brian Urlacher or something like that. Wilson, to me, I think is very much like Trotter. He's in a bigger body, but he's a run and chase guy. I would really, for a while now, I've been kind of looking at him. Oh, maybe he's that Cardinals, that alpha guy the Cardinals need in the middle. I don't think so. I think he would fit best with a team that already has an established middle linebacker. Kind of like how Patrick Queen got a lot better once Roquan Smith got to the Ravens, and that the Ravens might be a team looking at him. I think Wilson's kind of that run and chase weak side guy, wicked athlete, crazy athlete at his size, but not as physical as you think he would be at that size. I think if you bring him in as a true middle linebacker to run the whole show. He might struggle early on, but I like him a lot if you pair him with the right team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We actually have a lot of similar rankings in this one as well. I have, so at number 5, I'm the same as you. I have Cedric Gray from North Carolina. I think he did a good job breaking it down. Just a really fast player, man. And obviously he's not, the most athletic, not the biggest linebacker in this class, but really, really good fast player who can, explode to the football, really good in coverage, good as a run defender as well. He's got to improve his play recognition, I think, a little bit, but I like him a lot, and I think he's a guy that could become a starter in the NFL if he gets a little bit better at recognizing the plays when they're happening. At number 4 for me is Jeremiah Trotter Jr., another guy I like a lot, another interview that we actually had on this channel, one of the smartest linebackers in this draft. Obviously, the athletic limitations are there, the size limitations are there. He's a short player, but I still think he's a guy that you could put out there and trust him to always be in the right spot. And I think he's going to be a productive player in the NFL because of that. Number 3, I got Junior Colson from Michigan. Good, not great athlete, but he's got really good size as well. I still think there are some change of direction stuff that I don't love with him, but I think Junior Colson's a really productive player for Michigan, one of the leaders of that defense and what was one of the best defenses in college football, if not the best. I think Junior Colson's a guy that I would bet on probably in the second round. Edgerrin Cooper, number 2. Arguably the best linebacker in college football this past year. I know he didn't win the Butkus Award, but I thought he was. Like you said, I think that is a good point that you brought up that, a lot of the stuff he did was kind of as a spy, but he's got that speed, man, to really be a dangerous player. And I think he's got more in coverage than someone like Devin White did maybe coming out. And I understand Devin White's probably a better prospect overall than Edgerrin Cooper because he was a top 5 pick, whereas Cooper's me a second-round pick. But I still like Cooper enough, and I still like this tape enough to bet on him probably in day 2. And then number 1 is Peyton Wilson from NC State, same as you. Wilson, freak athlete, man. Scored as a 99th percentile athlete, according to Kentley Platt's relative athletic score. And he also was a dominant player, both in coverage, as a run defender, even added as a pass rusher as well. Big question for him is he's had multiple season-ending injuries, serious injuries at a position where it's a very, very physical position. So obviously you want him to stay healthy in the NFL, and that's going to be one of his red flags that he has. But when he's on the field, man, it's hard to find a better linebacker in this draft than Peyton Wilson just because of the freakish athleticism he has, and then also all the great things he does, both in coverage, as a run defender, and as a pass rusher. I mean, I always say this. I think linebacker is probably the hardest position to play on defense, at least nowadays, just because you're asked to do so much in coverage as a run defender, as a tackler. And if you're a liability in one of those areas, it's tough for you to get on the field. Peyton Wilson's really not a liability in any of those areas. He's kind of a plus player in all those areas. It's just, can he stay healthy? And I think that is going to be the difference between him being a really productive linebacker in the NFL and one that could become bust because of him just not being able to stay healthy. So who is the sleeper, Dalton, that you have in this draft at linebacker?
Definitely not the stud Toledo defender you expected to hear about yet. Let me get Dallas Gant, if I could speak, from Toledo, linebacker there. Former 4-star recruit at Ohio State. Played a lot of special teams there and just couldn't earn a starting job, and especially in 2021 after got beat out by Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers there. Transferred to Toledo the last 2 years. And after Jeremiah Trotter over the last 2 years, he's the next highest graded linebacker in this draft. Just I think his play style is a lot like Colson, actually, where it's kind of quiet. It's fundamentally sound. There's not a ton of big mistakes. 80-plus grades in both run D and coverage this year. And just anchored that Toledo front seven. They were an elite defense this year, man, at that level. You don't see a whole lot of mistakes. Now, I don't know. I couldn't find Toledo Pro Day results anywhere because Gant wasn't invited to the Combine. I just could not find these Pro Day results. But I would be curious to see what he actually runs because the speed would be a difference for me. I think I saw one rumor that he ran a 4.58, and if that's the case, this is a guy who was a 4-star recruit at Ohio State and a ton of talent. I think you could develop him into something like Colson, and if not, I would still take a chance on him based on pedigree and athleticism. And he played nearly 800 special team snaps in his career. There is a role for Dallas Gant on an NFL team, and I think it's just a matter of how much they can unlock his physical talent to get him to be, if they can get him to be a starter. I don't think he's all that different if he hits his peak than Junior Colson.
I don't hate that at all, man. Dallas Gant's definitely a guy that I like a lot. He graded out as one of the top linebackers in the country this past season. Unlike Dallas Gant, my guy I'm going for as sleeper wasn't really a highly rated recruit coming out of high school. It is Edon Oso from Washington, 2-star recruit coming out, and actually was a walk-on originally at Washington. He actually was an honorable mention All-American in the 2020 season, all the way back in 2020. Then just battled injuries, man. This guy could not stay on the field. He had a torn bicep in 2021, torn ACL in 2022. Finally was fully healthy this past season and showed why he was such a good player for Washington. Obviously, very experienced player, which allows him to recognize plays pretty quickly and play really, really well in coverage. And then I think the big thing with him, and I've seen a negative on a lot of scouting reports for him, is that he's not an elite athlete. Well, according to his athletic score from his combine, tested out as a 97th percentile athlete, man. So it's almost like, I understand there are some stuff that you can't really, use testing to really judge their athleticism, because there is stuff on the field that matters. But man, when you test out that well, it's almost like, okay, I don't really know why he's being talked about as a poor athlete when he runs a 4.56 40, 1.53 10-yard split, which is 99th percentile for linebackers, by the way, 39.5-inch vertical, 98th percentile, 10-foot 8-inch broad, which is 97th percentile. I mean, like, he is really fast, really explosive. I think he deserves a lot more love right now, and he is going to be probably definitely a day 3 pick. I'm going to look right now where he is on the consensus board. Yeah, 156 on the consensus board, which is like a 5th, 6th rounder right now. I think Edon Oso deserves more than that, man, and I think he proved that he's a really, really good player, especially in coverage, which is where I think it's really valuable to be at linebacker nowadays. Really, obviously, hard-working player that you'd want in your locker room, the guy who became a really good linebacker after starting as a walk-on. And then he also has really good athleticism, at least in the combine setting as well. So right now, going to be a 5th, 6th-round player, and I think he deserves to be more than that, man. So Edon Oso is my most slept-on linebacker in the 2024 NFL draft.